He's just in a hurricane and then ends up in like the Pacific Northwest somewhere.
He just ends up in a small town, and then we get Roadhouse.
Exactly. Which they mention the Roadhouse bar as like places that they go.
Yes.
Well, it's funny. He says to John, he's like, "What, am I going to paddle to New Zealand?" And it's like, secretly, he's like, "I could easily paddle to New Zealand."
No, he's not going to paddle to New Zealand. He's going to ride that wave to New Zealand, man. He's gonna
I don't know if you understand how waves work. That wave is coming right back.
Not really. Not at all. No, I don't know.
I finally watched. I finally watched.
I
Finally
watched. I
finally
watched.
I finally watched.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of I Finally Watched. This is David.
And this is Alon, and I finally watched Point Break. And today we have not one, but two very special guests. We have Jackie and Danielle from No More Late Fees podcasts. Hello, guys.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. Do you mind just telling our audience just a little bit about what No More Late Fees is about?
So No More Late Fees is a late 90s and early 2000s podcast. And Danielle and I are best friends, and we rewatch some of the best and worst movies from that time. And so we go through and we talk about them. We talk about if they hold up to what we've kind of learned about today. And we just have fun. We have a lot of guests on. We have a lot of friends on. And we just have fun spending time together talking about movies, which was what bonded us in high school.
A lot of nostalgia, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Danielle was telling us how you guys have known each other since like what, the 10th grade?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you work at you worked at Blockbuster, which I think is such a cool background of like part of the reason or part of the resume that you take with this. I think that's super awesome.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
A relic in time. It's like working at a museum that only a few people know existed at one point in time. So
I had a love-hate relationship with Blockbuster because I got to a point where I just like wanted to buy all the movies that I wanted to like own. And I think at one point Blockbuster started doing these exclusive deals where they like were the distributor for movies, and so they would like you could only rent them. And so like towards the end, I would go to Blockbusters and just like buy all of like the random ones that they were finally selling when certain ones closed and whatnot. But I remember getting my grandmother to sign up for a Blockbuster account for when I visited her, because I visited her like all throughout the summer, and filling out the application and checking the box that her minor could rent rated R movies without her being present.
I don't think I ever checked that stuff. I was just like, oh, 9.5 weeks, no problem.
Yeah, Danielle was the cool employee that let you get a Euro Trip unrated version if you couldn't even look over the counter. That's it.
Meanwhile, I was the rule follower and checking up on her because I was her boss.
Yep.
So it was always like, Danielle, we can't do that.
I was like, he looks 13 to me. Just saying.
I could imagine Jackie is just like, Danielle, you have to do better because, this job is going to go places. Like, Blockbuster will never die.
I was just going to say, my brother actually got fired from a Blockbuster for waiving someone's late fees. Like like a bunch of people in the store did it, but then he was the one that got caught, and he just like didn't sell anyone out, and he lost his job.
We have a similar tale from our friend Nick, who we did a Clerks episode, and he worked at Hollywood Video, but it was a little bit worse than late fees. But it's a pretty funny story if you want to check it out.
Yeah, I need to. So let's get into Point Break. I decided to watch this probably like 6 months ago, and just for fun. I didn't think we'd ever do it, or maybe I was like, oh, at some point we will. And I didn't really like it. And I think it was kind of like the hypothesis of our show when we started it was like, if you saw a movie in the 80s or 90s, like back then or when you were a little kid, there's like a good chance you would like it. But if you watch some of this stuff now, it just doesn't hold up to like what movies are today. And so it's like the dialogue and some of the choices, I was just like, this is not great. And so when Alana was like, oh yeah, they want to do Point Break, I was like, whatever, fine. And I watched it again and I was like, nah, I like this. Like once my expectations were set, I liked it a lot more.
See, I'm a huge cheese ball. Like, I love 80s cheesy dialogue and like just those shots. I was just dying of laughter of those shots of like Keanu Reeves like turning and shooting and like in the rain and stuff like that. And then everything that came out of John C. McGinley's mouth was gold to me. Like, I was like, oh, this is the stuff. This is rich. But yeah, what did you two think of it?
I was telling Danielle this morning that when I first started watching, I'm like, oh, this isn't bad. Like a little like action, like he's an undercover FBI agent. But it's fine. And then we got more into like the ridiculousness of it. And I was just like, oh, it's not fine. I take back my assessment.
Since I'm the only one who actually watched it in the time period, I was very little, obviously, when it came out. But at that time, like, Swayze, he couldn't do wrong. Like, it was this, Roadhouse, and Dirty Dancing on rotation. Like, so I thought it was the coolest. I thought this was normal things that white men did, right? Like,
surfing and robbing banks. It's just another Wednesday for us, I guess.
Yeah, I was just like, to me, I was just like, okay, this is all right. Writing notes. This is what they do. You know, they fall out of air. They like to get on airplanes and jump out. I wouldn't personally want to do any of that, but okay. But
well, that was Patrick Swayze's literal pastime, and they had to have him sign a waiver that he wouldn't go and do any skydiving, and they allowed him to do that one jump in the movie if he promised not to do any jumps while they were filming, and then he would sneak away and do them anyway on the weekends.
Oh my gosh,
man.
I don't know if I had like a huge thought process about the movie because I was so young when I saw it originally, but what forever changed the way I look at this movie is when somebody told me that Fast and the Furious is literally Point Break, and I was just like, it broke my brain because it is.
Oh, wow.
Because it is. It is. And I told Jackie today, Paul Walker is like the perfect Keanu replacement, essentially. Now,
of the time, yeah.
Yeah. And Vin Diesel, though, he's no Swayze.
Not a great Swayze, honestly.
He's no Swayze, but he did his thing. Obviously, we're on the 10th movie at this point, so like
something's working out
right
for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once you think about it that way, your brain is done.
I've been out since Paul passed. Like, I haven't seen 8, 9.
Same. I was never into it anyways, so whatever.
Have you seen the first one?
Yeah, no, I've seen up to like 6, 7.
Oh, you just didn't like him. Gotcha. I think my main problem with this, I was thinking about it as I was like about to start this. A couple of like Keanu's line deliveries, he's doing it as if he's Ted from Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Via con Dios, Patrick Swayze. I don't know what he's doing.
I think that's just him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is he doing that version of the movie, or was he just being himself? Because if you even go back to like Parenthood, that movie, that's him. That's Keanu.
Yeah, but he's not like that in Devil's Advocate. Like,
that's him acting.
The acting got better.
There's a difference. I think he started to like get some acting coaching in between, and then like
Yeah, the way I can see it is that throughout the movie, like as the movie progresses, he becomes more this like dude, like that kind of accent on him. But it could be that he's adopting this like surfing, like he's going deep undercover. No,
Yeah.
David says no, but I
think that's what he was trying. I don't know how successful it was. I just imagine Bodhi looks at him like, what is this? What is this guy? So, you know, it's funny. For some reason, I thought a good preparation for tonight would be to watch the 2015 version of this, which I don't know if either of you have seen.
No.
But in that movie, not to spoil too much of it, but it's like revealed partway through the movie, it's like it has very little relation to this movie. It's a completely different story.
Oh,
They should
really?
have just named it something else. But at one point, Bodhi's like, yeah, we knew when you came up you were a cop. And I feel like Swayze, like, just it went unsaid that they were like, yeah, we've kind of always known. Like,
Yeah.
because though just you're so out of place here. Except they have that, you know, he's the Ohio State football quarterback, right? So it's like they already kind of knew it, which is like today you like could have just Googled him and be like, oh, he joined the FBI after Ohio State.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that it would not work today? Where he's like, oh, a famous guy joins the FBI. That would be all over the news.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I thought about that because they needed some way to recognize him, but I'm like, oh, this is back before Google, so it had to be like, oh, you were in the Rose Bowl. Like,
yeah.
that's
my
where
favorite
we know
part
you
of that
from.
football scene. My favorite part of that football scene is how he runs through every player on the field and some of them twice to get to Patrick Swayze to tackle him into the water. I was like, there are not that many people playing. Like some of those were on his team. It just kept going.
It's similarly towards the end where he's like running down to the beach when it's storming. He passes so many surfers, and that
Yeah.
staircase is so long. I'm like,
Yeah.
are we going to watch 5 minutes of Keanu just pushing past surfers to get to the beach? Like, what's going on here?
Excuse me.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jackie, because there's points in this film where I feel like the movie drags, where it's like for like a high action packed film, you have these lulls. And I don't mean like, I think everything that happens within the FBI, everything between Reeves and Gary Busey is great. Like I said, like some of the best dialogue in the film is by McGinley. Just whatever he says is just great.
He was so angry
all the time. But there's just moments in the film where it's like you could have cut sooner, you could have come in later, and it's weirdly paced at moments, and I don't know what that's about, but maybe that's like a Catherine Bigelow sort of style. Although she really, I gotta say, you tell me that this is directed by the same woman that did Hurt Locker, I'm like, you're kidding yourself. But it is.
But there's some people who I swear to God, no matter how much time has passed, you can't tell them this is not a cinematic, just
masterpiece.
epic masterpiece. Yeah, like you can't tell them that.
Those are the people that have their handle as Johnny Utah.
Yes. But I did tell Jackie today that Johnny Utah has to be one of the best fictional movie names ever. Like 100%.
I was watching this with my wife, and when he's shooting at the shooting range, whoever's like looking after him says his name, like "Good job, Utah" or something like that. And then when he goes to the FBI agent, FBI headquarters, and McGinley is like, "All right, Special Agent Utah, you got to she goes, "Wait, that's his real fucking name?" Like she thought he was just from Utah, like a nickname sort of thing.
The same thing. I was like, oh, they're so expendable. They just call him by where their location is. And then
he's from Ohio,
like, oh.
Isn't he? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Johnny Ohio wouldn't have worked.
You get Johnny Columbus.
No, just think of like the quotation for like a middle nickname. It's like Johnny Ohio Utah. Just
in the 2015 version, they call him Utah, and then he's like, "No, my that's just a nickname. My actual name's Brigham, like Brigham Young University." I was like, "What the fuck is that? Like, what are we doing here?"
What is this homage to Utah in Point Break?
Oh, okay, I get it. You mean like they call him Utah as like a hit to Mormons.
Well, no, they called him Utah because apparently his mom was like from the Ute tribe, even though the guy that plays him looks very like white.
I give up, man. I don't know what they're trying to do.
I don't think they know either.
2015. Somehow the 2015 version seems more whack than this one, than the original.
Yeah.
But that's
my, not to get. I think we should start getting into the movie after this. But my main issue with that is it with the 2015 version is it almost felt like a different movie that they're like, what intellectual property can we tie this to? So we're just going to slap Point Break on it. And I think a lot of shows do that now. And like movies do that, where it's like, this is just a separate story, but in order to get people in the theater, we're going to call it this. But it's like, but you made a bad movie, so no one's going to like it.
I think it's the opposite for that movie. I think they got so nervous because, again, this is like the Bible to people. Don't mess with my Johnny Utah. You know, like, I think they got nervous messing with the classic so much, so they're like, let's just make the story so different. And then by the time they were done, they're like, yo, this has nothing to do with the original movie, but this is where we were at. So, I don't know.
Especially, David, you reminded me of like 5 or 6 years ago, when they started making a bunch of like really good 80s movies, a bunch of really bad TV shows. And it was like, they have nothing really to do with each other, except maybe, for example, you have an Asian guy pair up with a black guy, and you're going to call it Rush Hour, the TV show, right? Mm-hmm. Or like you have Lethal Weapon, the TV show. Yeah. And it's just like these really bad straight to like cable network shows that don't have the charisma that the original ones have, but you have this certain race character with this certain race character, and it's closely resembled enough to this movie, so we'll just slap on the name. And it's just like, it feels like a jar of air. There's nothing in there, you know?
Yeah.
But speaking of slapping stuff on, how about that opening credits scene, right? Where the Point Break just comes in, just boom.
I love the surfing mixed in with the shooting. Just like, one guy's on the right side of the wall, the other guy's a renegade. What's gonna happen?
I was so confused during that scene. And like, I was like, where are we? Like, it was so confusing. And I was like, oh, those were flashbacks, I guess. And now we're at FBI headquarters. Okay, I've caught up.
Well, I love how everything has to be incorporated with something about water. Like, it's raining when he's shooting. It's the ocean when they're surfing. But then, like, even at the end, or even in the middle, when Gary and Keanu are talking about like their next move, it's like at a diving, like an FBI diving pool thing.
Yeah.
And so
where they have to dive for bricks? ? Blindfolded.
I love how they bring it up in the movie too. He's like, I don't know what the hell this is about. I don't know why we're doing this. But yeah, it's just water has to be like constantly incorporated somewhere in the movie at all times.
Maybe Catherine was ahead of her ex-husband with wanting to make the Avatar movie.
Yeah.
This is how you do water.
Yeah.
So I think the next thing is the first robbery, and the one, like, this reminds me of so many 90s, early 2000 movies, which you guys talk about a lot. And it's like, they don't like dead air when there's action. So, you know, you see like the Heat bank robbery, and there's like, just, they can be long pauses of no talking. In this movie, they're just, each guy's doing a one-liner. And it reminded me of like Twister when they're chasing the storm, and it keeps cutting back to each person. They each get their stupid one-liner. It's never like witty. It's never funny, but they have to fill the air with talking. It's like Fast and the Furious too. When they're driving the cars, it's like, if we talk, we'll go faster. It's like, just show the driving or show the bank robbery. We don't need them talking.
And every scene with Will Smith in Independence Day, it was just like, I think they just had a bulletin board.
But I love Independence Day though.
Ooh, don't listen to our episode. We tore that shit apart.
I'm not saying that it's not worthy of being torn apart. But I have memories of like being a teenage guy and just watching it and just eating that shit up all the time. Yeah,
We do too. We loved that movie, and then we rewatched it.
yeah.
As
Maybe I shouldn't
adults.
rewatch it. Yeah.
Don't meet your heroes.
Or else they might slap you. But yeah, no. But the point of that, I think, is just establishing the character. Thanks, David. I was just trying to put a Will Smith joke somewhere in there. God, okay.
Yeah, no one's
Jeez.
done it. It's new and fresh, is what you just did. So
About a year, almost a year old. Yeah. Yeah, but I think that just establishes them and who they are. But I wish it did a better job of like making Keanu Reeves' character more straight edge and then him breaking down into like the wild side. But it doesn't really do that. It's the stuff with him and Lori Petty. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I think it could have been done better.
I just felt like they didn't have much chemistry.
That's a
on
big
screen.
thing too. Yeah.
And how do you not have chemistry with Keanu Reeves? Like how?
well, he had more chemistry with the water, but like to your point, Alana, about like establishing the Johnny Utah character, like when he's first talking with John C. McGinley, he's like, John C. McGinley's like, I need straight-laced people, buy the books, da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, can you be that? And he's like, I pulled the skin off my chicken, sir. He's like, oh, that a boy. And then the next second he's eating a donut. He's like, I love these. It's like, I don't know what your character's supposed to be.
Like he has like it's a weird personality thing where it's like you see a little bit of him kind of talking back to McGinley, but like under his breath, right? Like he's like, McGinley says something like, we have enough assholes as is. And he's like, yeah, now, or something, like calling him an asshole. And then he picks like the most flamboyant surfboard that everyone makes fun of him for. But it's like, is that his personality or is that like written into the script? Like, I can't tell for convenience. Does that, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. He picks a super ostentatious surfboard, but none of the clothes he wears, like Gary Busey wears more like Hawaiian shirts than him. But like, if he would do that, wouldn't he like wear more colorful clothing? It's that kind of stuff.
I just don't think he knows what to do.
And I think he breaks a little more into that because when they're at the beach where the robbers go, he has like a purple wetsuit on, like it's black with purple trim, and I'm like, that seems like an interesting choice for yourself, Johnny. I would have guessed just black for you.
It almost seems like everything he's picking from the surfboard to the wetsuit is like it's in a section of the surf shop called beginners, and he's just grabbing everything from there.
Maybe because he's in the FBI, everything's so like the same that he finds ways to like peacock when he can, I guess.
And you know what, Danielle? I love that, but I wish they showed more that was his character instead of like some sort of background stuff.
You know, it's funny. So you're talking about like the pacing of this movie is that in like the first 30 minutes, they use two different montages. So like the first is he's like, how hard can surfing be? And then he just crashes for like 30 seconds. And we're like, oh yeah, he's like really bad at this. And then he gets saved by like Lori Petty. And then he goes to her and asks, for help. And then there's like a montage of him learning how to surf. And like 5 minutes later, we're like, oh, okay, he's like a decent surfer. And it's like, so even with all those montages, this movie that should have been like an hour 40 is still over 2. And I don't understand that part.
When Lori Petty was saving him, like I mentioned, my wife was watching this with me, and she's like, "Oh, that little boy is saving him."
Oh no!
And I was like, "No, that's a woman, babe."
That's Kit from A League of Their Own.
Oh my God, A League of Their Own. That's one I haven't thought of in a while.
Yeah, I agree. Like, well, and when she saves him, I guess it could be considered realistic, but she throws him on the surfboard, but his face is still in the water. And I'm like, ma'am, you're not doing anything to help him. Like, you need to get him upright somehow so he's not just continuously inhaling water.
I mean, he's got to help himself. You know what I mean? Like, she can only do so much. She keeps yelling at him to like swim. She's like, do something. Like, I can't do this all on my own. He's just like laying there.
He's a grown ass man. Okay,
he knew the
I
risks.
assumed he like knocked himself out.
He's that bad.
Yeah, either that or you know how like it's pretty common for people when they get tumbled not to know which way is up.
Yeah.
And so you get really confused. I just figured she could have helped him a little more until he was breathing on his own.
I think the way the plot moves in this moment is actually really cool. Like, through her, we get to meet, or he gets to meet Patrick
Bodhi.
Swayze and the gang, right?
Mhm.
And then they have that like little rapport. But then when he goes out to surf again, he meets like the bad surfers, like the super territorial. I know surfers are territorial, but like, I will kill you sort of thing is what I was like, okay, whatever movie, but maybe it's true. I've never.
They're drug dealers a lot.
Yeah, but like it also
That
has
happened to surf.
I'm pretty sure wasn't there a woman in the beginning who like told him to like hit it, like not Lori Petty, but like someone else was like, hey, you're bad, like get out of my way. Like surfers are notoriously territorial, I believe.
According to this movie, like
I think so. And the names of the characters. And I get like it's part of surf culture that like everyone has a nickname. No one goes by their government name. But some of the names of these people, I was just like, I don't even know what you're saying right now. I don't know what you're calling him. There was a Gromit, I think, at one point.
So there's Gromit, Roach, Tone, War Child, Bunker, Freight Train. Yeah.
War Child might have been like. I was going to say War
ahead.
Child might have been like an indigenous name though. I love the way Patrick
Maybe
Swayze
Gromit.
says it.
Maybe
He's like,
Gromit too.
he's like, you have to calm down, War Child. I was like, what the fuck?
Whatever happened to the surfer names like Moondoggy? You know, the simple days.
Yeah,
And,
but
apparently Gromit, by the way, is like supposed to be like a young surfer or something. Like, so at least there was something involved with that. I thought Rosie being the like the most psychotic member of the group and the name being Rosie was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because that was the one who was going to kill Lori Petty.
Yeah.
yeah, but there's literally a character named Psycho Stick.
What?
So there's that. I
I
think
just
it's one of the drug dealers. Yeah.
I just love that a woman made the most broy movie of all time.
Oh.
So I wanted to talk about that because if you look at this movie, you're like, this is directed by a man. It has to be directed by a man, 100% directed by a man. Just the way that this movie kind of treats women. And yeah. And it's like, apart from the main character, apart from Tyler, Lori Petty's character, every woman in this movie is either shown naked or doing some sort of house chore.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird thing for me to be like, especially like living in this time where we're so like pushing like a good representation of all people. But especially when it comes to women, a movie being made now is like not trying to really show that. And so for a movie directed by a woman to go literally all in, I was just like, Catherine Bigelow is really a product of her time, isn't she?
I would say a lot of boomers who were in very male dominated industries, I don't think they take the approach I think probably our generation does, which, you know, it was almost like they had to perform as a man, you know. I don't know how to say it in the politically correct way, but
you don't have to worry about that here. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
I mean, they had to fit in. So this was also. Sorry, I was just going to say this was also co-written by her husband at the time, James Cameron. Although I don't think he was like him.
And there you go, everybody. And that
And-
explains it.
And also, the naked woman, who is very integral to the plot of the movie, is also shown as very powerful. She took out Keanu Reeves. She was about to beat up another person. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Her
equal
name is
representation.
Freight Train.
And boy, did she live up to it. Okay. I
We
mean,
had a freight train, and the other girl's name was Fiberglass.
yeah. Well,
Deadly.
see who kicked ass and see who got shot. Right? Come on. But it's kind of crazy, especially in that scene, and I think we're pretty close of getting there. I don't know, David. Before we get there, do you have anything to add?
We talked about the football, which was just so key. Also, fun fact: same beach where the soccer game was played in Karate Kid. Saw that earlier.
Jackie's never
and-
seen that movie.
I have not.
Oh my god! You guys
You've never seen the
well,
Karate
it's
Kid?
a little too early for your pod,
Mm.
but you need to do it. And then the whole reason they find these drug dealers is because of some great detective work with the toxins in the hair, and like you get this computer
Oh my
printout
gosh.
of it's 33% selenium, and it's this. And it's like, okay, we're just gonna the montage of them pulling hair from different people, like the stoners, and some of like the best line reading from Keanu when he's like, dude, I got that bug off of you. Totally saved your life. Like that was one of the lines that like really stuck out to me. And then that gets us to the drug dealers.
Well, and also early on when Gary Busey, the only detail he has to go on is the surveillance footage, and I guess the robbers always moon the camera, and they have a very distinct tan line, so that's how he knew it was surfers to begin with, to narrow his search.
Well, also the wax that they used. But by the way,
Yes.
I'm glad you brought up the camera, because they moon the camera and then it like sort of pans out to where it's the security footage of the mooning, and that security camera is either like the best technology of the time, or it was like the camera on the guy's ass. Where's that security camera like being posted that it's like got that great of a view of his ass?
Right?
It like makes no sense.
I took it that he knew where the camera placement was, and therefore he mooned it purposefully.
There's a lot of security cameras that are just like 4 foot high in the middle of the bank as you walk out the door.
Yeah, man, maybe.
I personally love the scene. It was very
Anytime you get to
integral
see
to the story.
A little booty.
Was that
Yeah.
Swayze's? Was that Swayze's ass?
No, it was
No.
another guy, because when they're surfing, he moons the friends, and that's how Keanu puts it together that it's that group.
Brilliant.
Oh, okay.
Sherlock Holmes right there. 100%.
Well, also with Lori
100%.
Petty's like, it looks like you've seen a ghost, and then it flashbacks to Pappas like, these guys are ghosts, Johnny. You're never gonna find them.
And then it's like a slow-mo of them surfing
Yeah.
as he's like thinking about the ghosts.
You know what would have been great is if when that dude who is the mooner of the movie, I guess, pulls down his pants while he's surfing, he still has the remnants of the thank you Sharpie. Like
He used like permanent marker.
marker. Keanu still looks like maybe it could be them. Like type of look. Like, and it's so obvious. Yeah.
Could you guys imagine anybody else playing the role besides Keanu?
So
It
I couldn't.
Depends if I wanted a good actor to.
I don't know if you guys looked this up, but so the studio wanted Johnny Depp, which for whatever he's gone through lately, I think would have been a better actor in the movie then. But Catherine Bigelow was actually like, no, I won't do it without Keanu Reeves, which is so weird to me that she like fought for Keanu in this. Although like as a surfing movie, Keanu's like, I think he's perfect for that. But
they also wanted Charlie Sheen too.
I never want Charlie Sheen. And then Willem Dafoe, Val Kilmer, and Matthew Broderick. Val Kilmer, I think, would have been perfect.
Val Kilmer.
Yeah, Val Kilmer would have elevated the role for sure.
Have
But
you
can't
guys
have
ever
two
seen
blondes? You know the rules.
See, that's the
That's-
other thing too, is that Keanu Reeves and Swayze are like different looking enough that
Mhm.
you could play the two sides of the same coin kind of thing. But when you have two like dark haired people or two light haired people, it's like that contrast doesn't really like hit as hard, I guess.
Yeah.
I told Jackie there's a rule in white movies that there has to be like hair color.
Diversity.
Apparently in white people culture is diversity. So you can't have a blonde and two blondes. You just can't do it.
That's 90s
where are you gonna-
diversity. That's
Yeah.
90s
Yeah.
diversity
But
for sure.
But that's true though. Like Danielle, like that's true. Like I have dark hair and David is the blonde one. So there we
And
go.
Jackie and I are ebony and ivory
We
all
are.
day.
Yeah, see? We can make fun of it all we want, but we're just living proof of it. Okay.
We are living by these rules and didn't even know it. But like, for example, Scream, Neve Campbell, when they hired her, because originally it was supposed to be Drew Barrymore, and she's blonde, but
Mhm.
then they made it Neve Campbell. And so when Rose McGowan got the job, she's like, we can't both have black hair. So that's why she dyed her hair for them. It's the rules, y'all.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
So
guess
Val
it's-
Kilmer was never going to be in this movie.
But it's
He'd
not
have to
if
dye
you
his
like
hair.
dark-haired Val Kilmer grown out. I also think it's like they just treat audiences stupid. It's not even about like, oh, we can't all look the same. It's like they're like, oh, if we have them both with the same hair color, they're gonna get Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze mixed up. You know what I mean? So it's like we have to have them look different.
I guess I have no idea what the reasoning is. It's weird to me, but yeah.
They
One thing I
solved
wanted-
that in Fast and Furious. They had Paul Walker and then no
No
hair.
hair.
One thing I want to talk about before we get back to the drug addict or the drug dealers. There's at one point John C. McGinley comes in. He's like, "This investigation is taking too long," and I was like, "He's been surfing for 2 days. Like, I don't understand. What do you mean? Like, what? How much time has passed?"
I was
Right.
confused by
Y'all
that too because
have missed them like 1,500 times. Like it was an insane number of bank robberies that they have been like following.
yeah,
But that was over years,
but-
though, wasn't it?
it
Maybe that was just total, but like they've been following these guys for a while. Johnny Utah has shown up on the case for like maybe a week, and now he's in trouble for not solving it immediately.
Right? Yeah. No. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Fix it, Johnny.
I think also I love how Gary Busey is like, this is why I think they're surfers. And yet I guess it's a little far-fetched, but it makes sense. But how everyone else on the force just ridicules him about it. And that talk when they have like on the Hollywood, probably not the Hollywood Hills, but it looks like the Hollywood Hills, where he like pulls him up. He's like, "Are you mad? You should be mad."
Oh my
He's like,
gosh.
"You want to get this?" It's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Then let's do it." Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
So then we get to these guys. Johnny Utah runs into their line, which also a big plot point for the 2015 version. And they immediately they punch him, then they cut his surfboard, and then I guess they might have just talked themselves up into like, all right, we now have to go beat his ass too. Like we have not escalated this enough. And one thing I read that I found to be really funny is they had fight coordinators for this. Like, so Patrick Swayze wanted to do most of the surfing himself because he didn't like using stunt doubles. And then Catherine Bigelow decided the fights needed to look real. And so the only person who missed fight training was Anthony Kiedis. So then when they choreographed it, they just had him get punched out with one punch and not do anything as his like punishment.
He deserves it.
Yeah. I like that Johnny Utah like held his own for a while, and then Bodhi come in once again. War Child, you're acting crazy.
This is my favorite
Child.
scene with Johnny Utah, where he's completely surrounded by these dudes and he just acts really cool, calm, and collective, and then he just systematically starts beating them until like he's super outnumbered, but they get a hold of him. And then Gary Busey is like, that's almost like a comedy skit, like straight up for comedic purposes. And then as soon as he runs into them, he plays it off cool. He's like, have you seen a dude who stole my radio? Like,
Yeah, no, it's very good. The other thought I had during this part of it was, as someone who's, we've all watched a lot of movies, you don't have Patrick Swayze star in the role where he's not the protagonist or the antagonist. So it's like, did people in the 90s not realize he was the bank robber? And the same with like Keanu Reeves is like the people who are these bank robbers surf this one beach, and Patrick Swayze runs up, and it takes him like 3 more weeks to have this like vision quest where he's like, oh, maybe it's Patrick Swayze.
As soon as he showed up, I was like, oh, there's a reason he's at that beach. Jackie put it together. I don't know why Johnny didn't.
I'll tell you why Johnny didn't. It's Keanu Reeves. Also, there has to be some sort of plot to like progress this. If it was as simple as that, this movie would be done in like 30 minutes. Like, it's them.
This is true.
Yeah. But then we get the running of the license plate, and then their like rap sheet pulls up to like their beanie, drug dealers, everything. So yeah, and I don't get this. Maybe someone can explain this to me, but they had to stake out the place before just running in there without a warrant. Couldn't they just run in there without a warrant if they were just never going to do that in the first place?
No, they got a warrant. Busey says to him, he's
did?
like, oh yeah, we're gonna get what's his name, Harp, John C. McGinley's gonna push through and get the warrant for tomorrow morning. So they're staking him out just in case they get probable cause, in the meantime. I like the party the night of before the during the stakeout, the party that happens, where Johnny just is like, oh, you know what, I have to wake up early to raid these drug dealers, but I'm gonna go bang Lori Petty and like surf at night, and then just wake up late for my own raid that I've like set up.
And then when he wakes up and he's super late, he still is not leaving. He's still making out with Lori Petty for another like 5-10 minutes before he gets out the door.
I mean, who among us?
It's Lori Petty.
Who among us?
Jeez, man.
He doesn't want to ruin things. He's like, you don't want to be the guy who's just like, well, that was great. I'll call you. I like, there's this one line that Patrick Swayze says, and he's like, they're talking about the big 50-year wave, and then Lori Petty's like, yeah, he's a kamikaze. And then Patrick Swayze come in, he's like, Johnny has his own demons, don't you, Johnny? And I was like, what are we, like, what is that? And I guess he's just talking about like his football injury, but it's like not really explained like
it
what
makes
Patrick
you
Swayze is
question if
referring
he knows or not. I think that's like what they're trying to make it seem like.
So
like, does he know?
I know we were talking about how Catherine Bigelow was probably just trying to fit in with the boys for this one, but I feel like there is this under sense, like radar of like, will they, won't they, between Keanu and Patrick.
Totally homoerotic, 100%.
It is, and I feel like she's fit enough like adrenaline pumping stuff to like for like the dudes who are like producing this movie, like her ex-husband is like, yeah, this is cool, there's nothing homoerotic about this, but then it's like all the women know, it's like, yeah, it is, sort of thing. Yeah.
I would just like, make out already, please.
When he walks in, when Keanu and Lori are like sharing a moment during that part, the bonfire scene, and he walks in, he comes in like, all right, 3-way, we're gonna do this or what, sort of vibes for me. I was like, whoa, this is a different movie.
So when they like foil the last bank robbery, or the second to last, I thought it was the last, and then like the movie just keeps going for 30-45 more minutes. But when they foil that bank robbery and all the robbers look and see, and one of them's going to shoot Keanu Reeves, and Patrick Swayze stops him, it's either, like you guys are saying, the gay love between them, or maybe he knew the entire time he's a cop, right? And so he's like, I already knew, you know what I mean? Whatever, dude, don't shoot him. But like, why he stopped him is interesting because especially like, he shot so many other people the next robbery. I think the movie is like playing with the idea that, oh, they're like robbing from the rich and like it's not your money, it's the bank's money, it's insured, and like, yeah, they're robbing, but they're not hurting anyone. And then that last robbery, just like all bets are off and a lot of people die.
Yeah. His whole crew is dead.
Yeah. Apparently they die in presidential order, which I did not realize.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The thing about like the up the ante and like the stakes being so high towards that last bank robbery, I know I'm skipping ahead. See, I do this, right? But I feel like we're going for the vault turn.
Mhm.
Like that's Swayze's character arc where this isn't enough adrenaline. Like surfing never became enough, so he started robbing banks, or robbing banks never became big enough, so he started skydiving, or whichever came first. And it's like all that wasn't big enough. We never took the risk of robbing the vault, so it's like he was trying to find his limit.
High. Yeah.
Yeah, his high, and he just keeps searching for his limit, and then that's it. Like that's where all the shit goes wrong. And then in the end, it cost him his life.
Yeah.
So
Allegedly, maybe.
Yeah, I always feel like it's like
We
the
didn't see a
Dexter
body.
situation where like he's just in a hurricane and then ends up in like the Pacific Northwest somewhere.
he just ends up in a small town, and then we get Roadhouse.
Exactly.
Well,
Which they
he was-
mention the Roadhouse bar as like
Yes.
places that they go.
Yes.
Well, it's funny. He says to John, he's like, "What? Am I going to paddle to New Zealand?" And it's like secretly, he's like, "I could easily
Yeah.
paddle to New Zealand."
No, he's not going to paddle to New Zealand. He's going to ride that wave to New Zealand, man.
Yeah.
He's
I
gonna
don't know
get
if you
out
understand how waves work. That wave is.
I
Coming
don't.
Right
Not
back
really.
To us.
Not at all. No, I don't know.
I want to get back to the raid real quick because there's two things I love about it. One, the use of the lawnmower. I just think is like pretty well done. And then two, Tom Sizemore coming in and just like, I have one scene. Everyone clear out of my way because I'm just gonna go crazy.
That was Tom Sizemore?
He's the Tom Sizemore looking fellow who's like,
Yeah.
you guys fucked up all my undercover work. Which, if you had been undercover with these assholes for that long, you're just like, you just killed him. Now I don't get the bigger guy. I'd be mad too.
I feel like that always happens though in movies and television when they bust something. There's always some guys like, I've been working this undercover case 8 years in the trash because of you. And you're like, you didn't get it in 8 years. That sounds like a you problem.
But you're right though. If this movie was like older than what it is, we would be like, oh, it's a cliche. But it's probably one of the first movies that have done this in this way. Just because it's a bit of an older movie, but just like the male gaze from Catherine Bigelow, which is a weird thing to put together. But when Keanu Reeves is doing the mirror and he's like checking out like they have to pan over to the shower of the silhouette of her naked body, like they have to.
What do you wait? What did you mean? You said the male gaze. What other type of gaze are there?
No, I meant.
I was just messing with you.
You're so annoying. I hate you. You're so annoying.
We're at the bank robbery, and I just have to know, why does Gary Busey need 2 meatball sandwiches? How big are these sandwiches? And then he like leads. My favorite line of the movie is when after Johnny Utah leaves and he leans out the car and he's like, Utah, 2. Like, I'll get my second sandwich.
He has low blood sugar and needs a snack immediately. But
Good Lord.
He's not leading the healthiest life.
no. And did you notice when he's walking on the beach, his feet were a hot mess? I was like, why are we zooming in on Gary Busey's toes? I
think
hate it.
Catherine wanted to make sure it was on
What
record.
erotica?
Yeah.
She's like,
But,
I've showed boobs, and now for the foot people, here's Gary Busey.
For the
Yeah.
ladies.
For the foot people to completely turn them away from their own kink. Here's Gary Busey's feet.
And as for him getting 2 sandwiches, the Lord didn't give him all those teeth for nothing.
I like really wanted a meatball sandwich after hearing that. Every time,
Me
I was
too.
like, man, that sounds
Me too.
Yeah.
And I
So
never
good.
thought the one to be selling me on that would be Gary Busey, but here we are. So.
He should be
Well,
the
and
new
we're going
Subway
to-
rep.
And we're going to send our partner away while we're trying to stake out a potential bank robbery.
It's almost
and we're
like
going to read the newspaper.
It's almost like McGinley was right. They may just be bad cops. Who knows?
I don't think Gary Busey believes in this lead, though. I think that's why. I think he thinks he's like, it's not these guys. Like, you're an idiot. Although I don't know, they do the whole thing where Keanu jumps on the desk and he jumps on the other desk and they're like pretending to serve. He's like, we're gonna get him.
Things like that in this movie, I can see why people absolutely love this movie, is because you have this like dynamic between those two characters where you don't have to go all the way, but then they do, and I don't know, it's just like something really heartwarming about them both jumping on the desks and pretending to surf. Cool. Sorry, David. It's cool, man. I liked it.
Well, I've been like pro this movie the entire time. I just
I don't. No.
One really cool detail I liked about this is at the very beginning of the movie, Keanu says like, oh, they pull the car out front of the bank, they leave it running, but from far away it looks like it's actually parked. And as he's ordering the sandwiches, he kind of looks back after they've run into the bank and he's like, oh, that car's parked over there. And then when he goes to Pappas, he's like, has that car always been there? And then you see them run out of the bank, and then it's just on.
And man, is it on. That's a fun chase scene. I enjoyed every minute of that, even though maybe it was a bit too long.
I think
the
I
flamethrower.
I think I looked down at one point, like checked my phone, and I looked up. I'm like, oh, we're still chasing. Okay, I guess it'll end sometime.
Like you think it's gonna end. You think it's gonna end when they like freaking blow up the gas station, right? Like light the entire thing on fire, and then it doesn't. It goes on for like another 7 minutes. Yeah.
That's the foot chase. That's the start of the foot chase. You know, you gotta.
Yeah, I know that's the start of the foot chase. Well, I mean, Keanu Reeves, isn't he always on foot? Like, wasn't he always on foot?
Yeah, but
for the
Patrick
entire
starts
time?
running. Swayze threw a pit bull at one point, guys.
Yeah. No animals were harmed in the making of Point Break.
There is a moment where back at the bonfire party scene, they're all out surfing except for Rosie, who's by the bonfire, and he's like drinking whiskey and he's like spitting it in the fire and trying to catch himself on fire. I don't know, whatever. And it's like his obsession with fire. And then when they're at the gas station and he's lighting the cars on fire, I thought that was Rosie, because I was like, they established that he likes fire. It would make sense for it to be for him to be fire. But then I was like, that doesn't make sense. It has to be Swayze. But then why wouldn't they, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, why would they make it prevalent for Rosie to be obsessed with fire if he's not going to be the one lighting it in the gas station?
Just to show that he was crazy?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, fill 2 hours and 2 minutes some way, you know?
Yeah.
We get...
Did anyone notice, I'm sorry, David, just real quick. Did anyone notice the gas station absolutely exploding in its entirety behind them as they're running?
Did you just ask us if we noticed the explosion?
Because it didn't happen like it happened like way in the background.
Yeah, I noticed the explosion. Did you guys notice the explosion? The explosion?
I didn't. But again,
there we
I
go.
looked down thinking that this chase scene was almost over. So
That's fair. That's fair. There's have you ever seen Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz?
Yes. I love
Yes.
all of
So you remember when Nick Frost is explaining to Simon Pegg how he's obsessed with the movie Point Break because of the one scene where he's climbing over the chain link fence and Keanu just starts shooting up in the air, and then they reference that later in the Hot Fuzz movie. So I watched Hot Fuzz not understanding that reference at all. And then it's like a 10-year like revelation that me watching this now, I was like, oh, that's the scene. That's the scene.
Well, I was
Such a
just
weird-
nervous because bullets go up and have to come down. I'm like, you could
Right.
easily been
Hurt yourself.
shot by your own bullet, essentially, on the way back down. That was not a smart move to just shoot straight up in the air.
Can you just
I think that's a
imagine
plot-
like
That's a plot point from the Mexican, I think.
Yes, that's where I know the bullets come down and sometimes they hit you in the head and kill you.
I don't think that's
Can you-
actually legit, though.
Can you imagine if just like Lori Petty was just getting groceries and then all of a sudden she just dies? Just dies out of nowhere. Keanu Reeves is like, oh god damn it.
It's a weird choice. No! Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, because we see on the foot chase, it was established that Johnny Utah had to stop playing football because of a knee injury.
Yeah.
And so on the foot chase, that trick knee starts acting up again, which is why he can't follow Patrick Swayze any longer.
I'm surprised he was able to get into the FBI in the field with that injury.
So here's what I understood about that is that in the beginning we saw him doing really well at the shooting range.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably like a fantastic shot, and that's probably helped him a lot getting into the FBI. But more so than that is that when he's on the ground and Swayze has like half a football field ahead of him and he's climbing the fence and he's aiming down his sights ready to shoot him. I think we're supposed to completely be in belief that he can make that shot. And the fact that he gives it up is saying like he doesn't want to kill his friend. But the fact that would he even be able to make that shot, we know he can because we know he's an excellent marksman due to the first scene of the movie.
Right.
I think that's, and all that connective tissue with his knee in that scene is supposed to bring us to like how much this makes sense, even though if you're just watching it by itself, it might not make any sense.
Right.
So we get to Tyler finding out that he's an FBI agent. I got to say, this brings me back to a point I wanted to make earlier. The scene where he's like, all right, like they're looking up Tyler on the database and the one woman's like, damn, this girl's hot. But he's like, oh, dead parents. Awesome. That's my in. I was like, what an asshole.
Yes. The worst in ever. And then he plays on her emotions. Again, not great, Catherine Bigelow, by like going in and saying that his parents had passed away a few years ago. And that's when she like suddenly has her interest peaked. It was not a great play.
It's a great play if this is not our hero of the story.
Right.
But because this is the dude we're supposed to be like rooting for throughout the whole movie, in the first, like, when does that scene land? Like in the first 20 minutes of the movie? It's like, now it's like you make him out to be this real big a-hole. Yeah.
But I mean, do we want to know, like, is it playing into the fact that like he's going to, he is willing to kind of walk the line on morals sometimes?
I think so. I mean, because he follows through with that bank robbery because of his love for Lori Petty, which is like, I mean, I question why he still has his badge and is like in Australia looking for him after like taking part in that, because they weren't holding a gun to his head. I mean, they were, you know what I mean? Like, people died. I don't really understand what happened in between, the legal ramifications of all that. But yeah, he is playing like in a gray area with a lot of what he does.
I think maybe he was like, look, I know I'm in trouble, but like I'm literally the only person that can help you get him. I just want to get him, and then I will quit myself. Maybe that's what he did.
I'll throw my badge in the water, which is littering.
Right. Which Paul Walker, same stitch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Except they made like 9 of those, then.
Yeah. We
So
could have had 9 Point Breaks, y'all. One
You
of
know
them
what,
would
though?
have just been called
We
Johnny
did.
Utah.
That would have been cool though. Like I wouldn't have minded like this one focused on surfing, the next one could focus on I don't know, race cars, climbing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
any-
movie The Replacements with Keanu Reeves is like he goes back and plays football. He apparently was like from Ohio State, like he played college ball at Ohio State in that movie too. And I was like, that has to be just a Point Break
Johnny
like
Utah.
homage
Yeah.
that they're playing with. What I want to talk about next is we are 45 minutes left in this movie, and we're just going to go skydiving. And it's so weird that everyone knows. He knows they know he's an FBI agent, and they know that he knows that they're the bad guys. And somehow we're just going to go skydiving with these people. And like, it's like the social anxiety of not wanting to say no to your friends. You're just like, yeah, I'll go skydiving. Sure. Who packed this? They're like, oh, he packed it. I packed it. No, you know what? Take yours. It's so weird.
Yeah, like I want your pack and you use this one if I'm going to continue in this ridiculous show of machoism.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then it's like it's almost like, do they have that planned out? Like
I don't think they've planned
imagine but imagine if Swayze has like the dummy pack and then he gives Keanu the correct one and Keanu's like, no, I don't trust it, switch with me. And then he's like, oh, okay, buddy, whatever you say. It's just like, but I thought really hard about putting the dummy pack in this one.
Well, then you say like the macho, they just have like a dick measuring contest on the way down where they're like, you pull yours first. No, you pull yours. And then Patrick Swayze is like, nah, I'm just going to pull yours. I also, one of my favorite lines in the movie is one of the guys just screams out sex with the gods as he's falling down.
There are so many random one-liners. Like Danielle was pointing out, all of the poorly pronunciated Spanish phrases that they use.
It was like Spanish 101 wrong. That's what it was. Like ridiculous. Every chance they got, they threw in some Spanish, and I'm just like, ¿por qué?
Hola, muchacho.
Vaya con Dios.
Just like, and that had to come from James Cameron, because let's not forget Terminator.
Hasta la vista.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Yeah.
I just imagine Catherine's like, why do we have to do this? He's like, have you seen Terminator? All right, so let's while we shut the fuck up, we'll just put in Vaya con Dios.
James Cameron loves to appropriate culture.
In this case, it's just language.
There we go.
Yes.
What culture in the Avatar, though? What blue people?
The Na'vi, okay?
When we're done with this episode, I'll go through plot points
I'm
and
with
let you know.
I'm with you. I'm not a huge fan of the films. But anyways, I digress. The reaction and like how Swayze and Reeves are playing off of each other, it's like they're having fun almost, and they're falling and they're having fun, and then all of a sudden it's like you forget that he has his girlfriend held hostage.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know that yet.
No, but I'm pretty sure that
We know that for the second.
No, that hasn't happened. You're right, that hasn't happened yet. But still, though, like you shot at me, I shot at you. You did a flamethrower thing. You shot up in the air. That was very dramatic, wasn't it? It's like all that. Forget it. Let's just have fun falling to our possible death right now. It feels like a different movie all of a sudden.
I didn't forget it. I the whole time was like, this is weird.
It is weird. I'm not saying you forgot it or I forgot it or Jackie forgot it or Danielle forgot it, but motherfucking Johnny Utah forgot it, man.
true.
He was riding that high, that's skydiving
Sky high.
Another excellent movie.
True. Kurt Russell would have
Yes.
also been a really good replacement
he
for
would have.
Swayze.
Yeah.
I get them confused all the time.
Really?
Like
this
I can tell you which is which, obviously, but all the time I'm like,
With Swayze's long hair, he looks exactly like Kurt Russell in this film. It's uncanny, especially with like the scruff. It's crazy.
Mhm.
I miss Patrick Swayze.
We all
That
miss
is-
Patrick Swayze.
That's about the fourth time she said that today. Very in her feelings about Patrick Swayze.
Can you
I
imagine
am.
Patrick Swayze in like some sort of Marvel movie? Like he'd be
Oh.
great.
So
You
I
could've
could see
played,
him. I could have seen him as Thor. I mean, Thor's dad, Odin.
Odin,
or Star-Lord's dad.
Ego.
played by Kurt
Played by
Russell.
Kurt
Kurt
Russell.
Russell.
That's why I said it. So we get to the last bank robbery. As we said, Tyler's being held hostage, so he has to do a bank robbery. In all of this, I feel real bad for that security guard as the off-duty cop's like, I'm a cop. Do you have your gun? And he's like, just please don't do this. Like, why are we
He's
doing
like,
this?
Please.
So Danielle and I
look
had
like-
a moment,
Yeah.
and we were wrong, but we
What?
both looked at each other and said, "Is that Kevin from The Office?"
I thought so too. I thought so too. I had to look it up and also know that I was wrong.
I was like, I think it is, and then I was like,
Just
no,
the
we
way,
are completely
like,
wrong.
When he was shaking, it was just such the same thing. Yeah.
He
Same
had
way
similar
Kevin looked at the
vibes.
chili on the ground. It was
Exactly. Just like the little head shake. It was not, in fact, Kevin from The Office, though.
No.
So the bank robbery goes bad. John C. comes in and he's like, no, you leave him in those cuffs. And then I love the Gary Busey punching him out, the Gary Busey doing it. And then he just takes him off into the airport. And I got to say, like, both times I watched this, I was surprised at Gary Busey dying. And just like,
yeah.
no fanfare either. We just sort of moved on.
Yeah. Well, he did scream, no! So, I mean, we got that.
Well, this is a 1990s movie, so it had to happen. But
Yeah.
Slow motion and everything. But the thing about him punching out McGinley is he has a really good comeback for him, which we hear as the audience, but he doesn't get to hear because he's out cold.
Passed out.
Yeah. I was like, that number one rule of knocking someone out, you say your cool one-liner first so they can hear you, and then you knock
Then
them
you
the
knock
fuck
them
out.
out.
Yeah.
I had many times where I kept saying, that's Gary Busey, not Nick Nolte.
yeah, that's another one. That's
That
all the
happened.
time. Get them mixed up.
And I know they don't look exactly the same. They really don't. But there were moments.
It would
I
help
always
if they
get-
had different color hair. It would probably help.
Yeah.
I
You're
always get Nick Nolte and Chris Christopherson confused.
Whistler?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, nice. Good. Good. I one of our moments from that episode when we did Blade, I catch my wife calling him Whiskers, and I was like, honey, no, that isn't. He's not some sort of sidekick cat that Blade has. Like,
But that is
Side-
really precious that she calls
It
Whistler
is.
Whiskers.
A side kitty.
Cute.
a side kitty. Yeah.
One of my favorite lines is when they're on the plane and Keanu's like, Roach, you're cold because the blood is leaving your body and you're dying. It's just like, holy shit.
Meanwhile, Bodhi's like putting it. I'll get a jacket for you, and we're like, dude, that's not going to help at this point.
I was
Your bro's
looking at
bleeding
Jackie.
out.
I was like, the altitude is just not. He gonna be.
No.
He should be bleeding out profusely at this
But
point.
he pulled his chute. He pulled his chute, which means he died after he thought he was in the clear, which is which you have to be, right? Because what are they going to do? Grab the bag of money from like just a pile of blood and bones?
Yeah.
Like, he had to have pulled his chute. The other moment that kind of comes full circle in this movie is, again, when they're on the beach. There's so much that's established when they're on the beach bonfire scene towards the middle of the film. beginning of the film. I don't know. This film is long, but the kid who's like, "Oh, I'm not going to live till 30," and I'm like perfectly okay with that. And then he dies immediately in the bank robbery, and then my wife and I
Yes.
looked at each other like, "Yeah, he was right." Yeah.
Well, one of the other guys was like, "Oh, I don't want to die," and Rosie, or he's like, "We shouldn't go through this." And Rosie was like, "If you leave, you're dead." And I was like, "Is that a threat or like what is that?" And I think it has to be from him because he's the psycho.
Yeah.
Rosie gets the clearest like bill from the end of this movie. We don't see him at the very end, and he drives away with all the money with Swayze.
No, he's dead.
Yeah.
He's dead?
Yeah,
I don't-
Keanu explains it in his like monologue to Bodhi about following him. He's like, "I followed you here," and then what he said, he goes, "Yeah, Rosie was found in Baja, found your passport in Sumatra, almost got you in Fiji."
So he killed Rosie to get the money?
I think he said Rosie must have fucked with someone that was crazier than
It was
Rosie.
a knife
is what he
fight.
said.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah,
That's
Swayze.
Yeah, so this is a 90s movie and Rosie like was, like brutal to like another person that we like in the movie, so it's like Rosie has to die. The only thing that's weird is that we didn't see it, but like Rosie is
Yeah.
not going to live.
All right, well, that makes me feel better because I really thought he got away scot-free, and I was upset about that.
I have a major like question / maybe flaw in this is, first of all,
One? You have one?
for this point. So Johnny just says, "Fuck it," jumps out of the plane without a parachute. And he grabs a hold of Patrick Swayze, and Patrick Swayze is like, "I'm not pulling the chute, so you either have to drop your gun or you have to take the other hand off to pull the chute, and then you're not going to stay hold, to me." And I was like, put the gun in like your pocket, or you could hook your arm around like the thing and then hold on to the gun. You could hold the gun and the thing, like, and pull. Like, there are other options besides you having to drop the gun.
How good is his feet strength? Like, you just wrap your legs around him real tight.
Yeah.
I imagine it's really hard with the force of the parachute.
Force of falling? Yeah.
No, with the force of the parachute opening to hold on even with your hand strength. Like, I imagine
that's what I was
difficult.
wondering. Like, would someone be able to hold on to another person once the parachute is deployed and you have wind resistance?
I think at least you pulling it,
Let's
you
find out.
can know when it's about to happen.
Yeah, maybe. But I have to say that was my favorite part of the whole movie. Like that part where Keanu is like, and then he just jumps out without the chute is so cool. Like, out of all the dumb shit that this movie has introduced, it makes up for it in that one shot. It's just him,
and he makes himself
falling.
really aerodynamic so he can get to Johnny.
It's so cool. It's so cool. I understand the hype now, Danielle. I'm one of the Point Break heads. Like,
Oh,
I get
Jesus.
He's changing
We
his
lost
handle as he
another one,
speaks.
Jackie.
What do you guys think about the final decision for him to let him surf the wave instead of like? I love the idea of playing possum, getting your ass kicked, only to come out of the water and have him handcuffed to him. I just would have liked like a parody of this to where Bodhi just continues to beat the shit out of him and then finds the key and is like, "What was that? I don't really understand."
By this point, I was like, okay, like, is this movie over yet?
Jackie's like, can they just die? Can they both just die?
like, just, are they gonna, I fully expected Keanu to surf the wave with Bodhi and then just to both perish in the surf.
I was really looking out for that makeout scene, but clearly did not.
I mean, they had the handcuffs and everything. They had
Yeah.
it set.
That's the parody version of this.
I really like that the cops had their bougie rain jackets on when they came.
And the little shower
Hats.
caps.
Yeah, that was cute.
Yeah, fashion choice right there.
I also like that Keanu. Do you guys notice how he threw his badge? I was making fun of it in real, like when I was watching it with Jackie. Like, instead of just like going like this or kind of like this, he like goes like a frisbee and just like throws it. It was very awkward and unnecessary.
He was trying to skip it. He was trying to see how many skips he could do across the ocean.
It was weird.
Yeah. I just thought it was weird. I didn't notice his weird throw, but I just thought it was a weird conclusion to his character that he just like he doesn't want to be an FBI agent anymore. Because it's like I'm sure that mission took a lot out of him, but it's not like okay, I guess he lost Gary Busey, but it's not like he was in it for a very long time. It's not like he was a veteran FBI agent. Although we don't know how much time passed, do we? Between when they parted ways and when they see each other again. We just know that Patrick Swayze got a haircut and Keanu grew his out.
I think it gives us the amount of months. I want to say 17, but that was also the amount in the 2015 version that I watched like 3 hours ago.
Well,
I want to say
what
17
else is he
months.
going to do for a living?
He's going to ride that
So-
wave, man.
Apparently, there was almost a sequel to this that was going to explain that, called Point Break 2, obviously. And they wrote
Electric
a script.
Boogaloo?
Yeah, right.
Pointier and breakier than the last.
2.2 break. And so they this movie, like, its estimated budget was 24 million. It made 90. Like, easily could have had a sequel. And I don't know what the decision to not was, but I was trying to find the script before this to see like what happened, but I don't think you can really find it online that easily. But that, like, even now is like, so I think of the four of us, I probably like this movie more than the rest of us. I don't know, maybe on my second watch, but even with all like the nitpicks of it, I would still like, I want to know what happened to him, because it's such a weird way to end it that you don't know. It's left pretty open for Johnny Utah, like what happens to him, that I would be interested to know. Like what he clearly leaves the FBI, so what does he do?
I agree with that. Even though I was not a fan, I was like, well, his character is interesting enough. Like, I'd like to know what happens to him after he's put his friend in jail or let his friend go out into the sunset, and he's like a disgraced FBI agent now. Like, what's next for Johnny Utah?
I would watch anything that man is in.
Maybe he just becomes John Wick.
Maybe.
That's true.
Maybe that's our sequel.
That's
Well,
true.
okay, so let's follow the timeline. We have Point Break. We have The Replacements. He retires from football now. He's John Wick.
No. Before that, he's the chosen one. He installs himself into the Matrix.
Oh, that's true.
But that's a different timeline. It can't happen at the, because then you have to explain the Matrix, and then what he left the Matrix is the scene of him in John Wick movies. Like he's back in the Matrix and he's made up this fantasy life.
Because his dog dies.
Right.
No one's going to make that up
it's-
in their fantasy life.
It's got to be a parallel life. Well, unless the robots are fucking with him.
The last thing I will say is that I wanted Swayze to just ride that last wave a little bit better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he
He's
does.
like crashed and burned real bad.
Yeah, but like
real quick.
immediately.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm such a good surfer, and then dies immediately.
It's 100-foot wave. Like, give him a break.
But immediately. And then he just like falls off. I don't know. There could have been a cooler way for him to go at that point. They build him up, and
a sniper picks him off on the top of the wave, and Keanu's like,
Or-
no!
Or a shark.
A shark.
Could be a Jaws 3, Jaws 4, whatever tie-in.
Imagine we're watching this movie, like collectively, we're watching this movie, and all of a sudden it's 3 minutes from ending, and a fucking shark comes out of nowhere, kills Swayze, and then the credits roll. We would all be like, what the fuck?
It would be like The Sixth Sense, where people like kept that shit on lockdown, and people would just be like, have you seen Point Break yet? What about that ending?
Or it's like you hear that there's a shark in the movie and you're watching the whole thing through and you're like, oh, someone lied to me. And then in the 9th hour, it's like, bam.
That's a much better ending.
Yes. We fixed it.
We did.
Well,
I
that's it,
liked
folks.
it.
Another film fix.
David's like, nothing is wrong with this movie. Stop messing it up.
I mean, like, listen, there's a couple line deliveries, like I said, and he like could have just thrown his badge in a trash can, like that was on the beach, instead of throwing it in the water. Like, but that doesn't have the symbolism that we want. I mean, to me, this is like top 3 Catherine Bigelow movie that I've seen, and I've seen 3 of them. So this is right after Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30. I just like, I don't know. I feel like early 90s movies, and I've said this about 80s movies, that I think a lot of them are just like, don't work now. Like the dialogue is very cheesy, but it's like, I don't know. I grade them on such a curve now. And especially like going into the second watch, knowing what I was getting into, I was just like, I wasn't expecting to like it. So I was just like pleasantly surprised, like watching it again. I just focused on like the positives, but yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good movie. It's pretty good. I'm not a Point Break head, but it's pretty good.
Well, we enjoyed the opportunity to rewatch. Well, me rewatch, Jackie watch, and
I bought this movie today.
Sorry for your loss.
I wouldn't be opposed to watching it again. Like if someone was like, hey, let's watch Point Break, I'd be like, yeah, let's get my $9 worth. I'm down.
Well, thank you guys for joining us, and thanks for listening to another episode of I Finally Watched. I'm David.
And I'm Milan, and and Jackie has finally watched Point Break.